Welcome, everyone, to the L7C podcast, UFC edition. Today, we are going to be talking about UFC 278 that happened a couple weeks ago, talking about UFC 279, things that are going on in the UFC world. We have our MMA expert with us, Mr. Chuck Marlowe. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Martin?
I'm doing well. Man. 278 took place a couple of weeks ago. Chuck, there's a lot of surprises on this card, especially the main event. So where do you want to start?
Man, where would I want to start? Do we just start at the do we start at the just main event and work our way down to the ones that are no, matter of fact, we'll start at the beginning of the card and we'll work our way to the end because I'll save my feelings and thoughts and things like that for the end because that was a card. That was some fights I wasn't that was some things I weren't expecting in that card.
Right. So let's start off with the main card. Does the main card start with Tyson versus Harry?
Yeah, so we had Tyson Pedro versus
Mm-hmm.
Harry Hunsucker. You had Tyson Pedro pulling out a knockout in the first round. He dominated. It was pretty good. I didn't really think that Harry had that much of a chance. He was coming in off of a huge weight cut, moving from heavyweight to light heavyweight down to 205 now. So he looks good at the weight, but um, I just don't think he was ready for the speed. Tyson Pedro had a speed advantage. He just kept on dominating there, and he just hit him real good, caught him, and he just put him out. Um, there wasn't really too much to that than the fact that he just pretty much dominated him. Only took him like a minute and 5 seconds to get that knockout. It was a short-lived 205 light heavyweight debut for Harry Hunsucker. We'll see how he bounced back, and we'll see how he moves forward. Tyson Pedro will move up a little bit. They're both not ranked fighters, so eventually one of them will get a ranking. Pedro will get there. We just got to keep having main card fights like that, and people will definitely begin to notice him.
So where was Tyson at? I saw he's been gone for 3 years, sidelined. Was he hurt? What was going on?
Injuries, personal stuff, SADA, and things like those. I think that's one of the things for him. If I'm not mistaken, but it was just more, just needed to come back, bounce back, take a break from everything.
And then you go to like the next fighter. Here's another fighter who's been gone for years, Lucy uh, Pudilova, defeating Wu Yanan by TKO in the second round. So where was she at? She was gone for 2.5 years.
For her, actually, I don't remember where she had ended up going off to. I think she had took a break. I wanted to say Parenthood, but I might be wrong. Um, but I know she had took a break off. It might have been partially due to injuries as well. I think she maybe went on to another card for a second, but I'm pretty sure she just took a break just to handle life and handle things that she needed to take care of at home.
Was there anything in this fight that was made you say, "Oh, like how did you feel about this fight?"
This fight, it was more just there was an ooh factor to it because she knocked her out. Obviously, I thought I saw for Wu Yanan. She had a lot of hype around her a little bit. People were really looking forward to her in that division and seeing what she can do. And just Lucy was like, you know what? I'm coming back after a long break, a long time off. Show you guys what I got. First round was looking pretty good for Lucy. She was won the total strike battle. I think she had like 51 to her 32, which was like 50. I think she had landed 53% of her strikes compared to Wu's 32% or 67%, which is a higher percentage, but she just had a higher output. Lucy did on that is what I mean. But she just had a higher output, kept catching her, put her down, and then she just finished off strong. They had to pull her off.
Mhm. Chuck, we go into the next fight, man. You're a Jose Aldo fan, are you not?
I am a Jose Aldo fan. How can you root against Jose Aldo? The man has great character. He's probably one of the best bantamweights we've ever seen. The man has history behind his name. That's a gold coat. That's a gold coat Hall of Fame guy when you sit there and talk about Jose Aldo. A guy like him, you know he will be in the Hall of Fame eventually one day.
So what's going on with him? Because he loses this fight against Merab by unanimous decision. So, and this is Merab's biggest win of his career. And Jose, it's looking like he's on the other end of the setting off into the sunset.
So yeah, in that fight, it looks like he's riding off into the sunset. I don't know what happened. He just seemed not in the fight. He was just very behind Marab's speed and his just so Marab's the type of fighter he's in your face. It's constant pressure. The whole 5 rounds for every single round. He's like a Colby Covington. When you look at fighters like that just push a pace. They push a tempo that's ridiculous. They stay in your face. They're constantly on you. They're constantly in your grill. They're constantly wrestling with you. And wrestling can tire you out. Not too many people, I don't know, like if you like when you do high level wrestling and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
it takes a toll on your body. You constantly have someone else's weight either on you or you're having to deal with someone else's weight. Then you have to also you're constantly just moving and transitioning positions. You have all these bursts of speed and movement where it takes a lot out of you after a while, and you're grappling and you're using a lot of different strength, and it wears down your muscles. So I think Marab's approach, he went 0 for 16 on takedowns, but the fact that he kept pressuring for those takedowns, kept pressuring Jose Aldo, and Jose Aldo was just so behind with everything. He just was on the end of every single strike. He just wasn't coming out strong when he was striking. He just was on the tail end of everything, and he was always behind in the fight because Marab was just pushing a constant pressure that Jose Aldo just couldn't keep up with. I don't know if it has to do with age or if it's just Marab's that fast. And he just kept pushing the pressure. I mean, he had 135 total strikes compared to Jose Aldo's 59. I mean, if you want to take it round by round, you're looking at it was a 21-21 in the first round. Jose Aldo maybe looked like he was doing a little bit good, but Marab had the more significant strikes there in that round, which gave him that round. Though, if you look at that round, yes, they both landed 21, and Aldo landed a higher percentage at 68 compared to Marab's 39%, but he just had a higher pace, and the strikes he landed were more significant than Jose Aldo's. You get into round 2, that's where he really turned up the tempo. He landed 62 to Jose Aldo's 25, and he had a 74% clip. He was landing everything. He was starting to really hit him really good and just starting to knock him, and he was just getting them how he wanted to with his pressure, and Jose Aldo was just behind and tired at that point. Then you get into that final round, and that's where it's just, you can see it all right there. 52 strikes to his 13 strikes. Like, that just goes to show he was pushing a tempo. Jose was tired. He couldn't keep up with the pace that Merab was pushing. And the cardio on that man is insane. So I can't wait to see what he does moving up into that bantamweight division and then seeing who he will fight next.
So with Aldo, what is that? Is he? Would you say he's done now?
So I wouldn't say he's done. It just drops him 3 spots in the rankings because I think he was number 3. He dropped to number 6, and Merab went up to number 3. So you look at, for Merab, who does he fight next? Does Dana put him against a lower ranking fighter like a Corey Sandhagen or Marlon Chito Vera, who just won against Dominic Cruz and knocked him out in a great fashion and broke his nose on a beautiful kick, looking almost like someone else. I'm not going to spoil for those who don't know. So you look to see if he fights one of those fighters, or if you put him up against a TJ Dillashaw, who's ranked at number 2, or Peter Yan, who's ranked number 1. Or do you go ahead and just throw him for the title, which I don't think you do just yet.
Okay. That's great on that. Then you go up to there. You have the co-main event. Costa versus Rockhold. What did you see in that main event on who came out on top?
So Costa came out on top. For some reason, I'm surprised. I don't know why. I was just surprised to see Paulo in a different form than what we've seen him before. It looks like he's taking this a lot more serious. This is no more pretty boy fashion contest, IG model Paulo Costa. This looked like dogfight. I'm gonna get bloody, get down dirty, push a high tempo, high pace. like I'm a fighter. I look like a fighter. He felt like he was a fighter in that fight. So Luke Rockhold came off of a long break, and we were looking. He wanted to get another title run. Luke Rockhold is probably potentially a Hall of Famer down the road. The man held the belt in that division a long time ago, and he wanted to go back for another title run. But as you can see, he retired at the end of this fight because he just doesn't have it in him anymore. As you can see in that fight, he did not have it anymore. That fight was insane. He was so tired in that fight. I've never seen a fighter put their hands on their knees and sit there and try and take air in the middle of a fight. Like sitting there, taking breaks, running away from certain situations to try and catch air. He was too tired. And see Paulo push a high tempo and a pace like that and make a fighter so gassed out like that, it showed me that he's been taking this fighting stuff a little bit more serious, working on his conditioning, working on certain things like that. Now, Luke Rockhold's older. He's on a longer break, and he just doesn't probably have the stamina he used to have. So those things were working at a disadvantage already. But to see Costa just go out there and just enforce his will with 2 of 2 takedowns, and just push in 106 strikes of the 77% clip to his 57 strikes with a 73% clips, which they're both high percentage, but Costa was just pushing a better tempo and he was pushing out more strikes. And he just was just getting after him, man. Round after round, he just kept forcing a bunch of blows on him, kept putting pressure on him, and he just tired him out. Rockhold didn't have enough stamina to stay in the fight.
So then you go now to the main event. Kamaru Usman, Leon Edwards. Chuck, Leon was the pretty big underdog in this fight, and he shocked the world, man. Leon won the title by KO left high kick at the 4:04 mark of round 5, literally as close as a UFC buzzer beater win you can have. Chuck, what in the world happened?
Mixed martial arts is what happened. This is what I talk about when I talk about this sport. It is anyone can win on any given night. It doesn't matter if you're the better fighter or not. You can win on any given night. Let one mistake happen in the game of fighting against someone else, and you will lose a fight. I'll take it all. I'll start it off in round 1. I mean, you had Leon Edwards as a plus 280 underdog to Kamaru Usman's minus 340 favorite. Kamaru Usman went out in rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and just enforced his will. Sorry, I said wheel. He landed 92% of his strikes with 36 strikes to Leon Edwards' 17 strikes in the first round. Tempo was set right there. Now, one thing I will give credit to Leon Edwards for, in that first round, he got a takedown against Kamaru Usman. That is the first time Kamaru Usman has ever been taken down in the UFC. Give him props for that. It's a high-level wrestler, and he got him. He got him good, and he caught him. You get into round 2, you look at Kamaru Usman had 47 strikes to Leon Edwards' 21 strikes. He had a takedown in that round. He got on top, forcing ground and pound, forcing his will. Another round for Kamaru Usman. You're looking at a 20-18 right there. He's already. If I'm looking at the judges' scorecard, it's a 20-18 Kamaru Usman going into round 3. Then you look at his round 3, 38 strikes to 7 strikes, 2 or 3 takedowns, ground and pound, and forcing his will again, 30-27. He's going to win the fight if he just continues to not get a 10-8 round in the next 2 rounds. Round 4, 54 strikes to 9. 54-9. 1 or 2 takedowns, ground and pound that whole round, and enforced his will again. He was just bullying him throughout the fight, and all he did was ground and pound, take him down, get on top, and just beat his face in. And then you get to round 5. 14 strikes to 10. He still won that round in strikes. But you get down to that last minute in the fight. Leon Edwards dug deep. He said, I'm not going to give up yet. I still have an opportunity here because this is the sport of MMA. He threw the right, feinted the left. He feinted with that left jab. Kamara dipped his head right into the high kick, lights out. That's the sport of MMA. Kamara Usman was on track to beat a record of Anderson Silva for the most amount of time with a championship belt run. 16 fights, and he would have tied that record. It would have been 16 fights, would have been a tied record for title runs and longest win streak. And it ended right there on a left high kick on a fight that he would have won if he wouldn't have made a mistake of falling for a jab feint. It happens. It's the sport of the game. And he said that's the thing he loves about this sport. And I think we are going to see a totally different Kamara Usman after this. I think he was dominant before, but I think we're going to see another level of dominance now. I don't think he wants to leave a fight up to the judges ever again. I don't think he ever wants to leave that octagon without knowing he did everything to get a knockout and win and not leave it in the hands of anyone else but himself. To know you were going to win a fight and break some records and lose everything in the last minute and something that you should have won, that's a different type of pain. I'm interested in seeing what happens from there. It's cool we have a new belt holder. I'm proud for Leon Edwards. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge Kamara Usman fan because I'm 28% Nigerian. So shout out to the motherland. But it's great to see we have some new blood at the welterweight division and seeing what we can do with that. Because, like I said, he was losing to Kamara. Kamara's ran that whole division twice. He's ran through everybody in that division twice. And he's about to run through Leon Edwards twice, but he got caught. So there's definitely going to be a part 3 because Dana knows that will bring in some money. But don't be surprised if he tries to throw him against some other fighters because there's other fighters that could beat him. There's other fighters that could beat Leon Edwards for that title. But then you also got to look at the Khamzat Chimaevs and all these other fighters starting to move into there. So we will see what happens with that division. It got very interesting now.
So a couple of things on the things that you just said, Chuck. Just one of the most recent things. Why would Dana then risk that to have Leon fight other people who could beat Leon if he loses that title and we don't get a Leon and Usman rematch? Wouldn't you want their rematch for the title?
So this is the thing. Dana's about new fights. Dana's about things that people want to see. People don't want to see Kamara run through the division over and over and over and over again. People would like to see that fight again just to see, okay, hey, that was definitely a mistake by Kamara. Or, hey, Leon Edwards is the real deal. Yes, he deserves that title. He can beat him twice. So everyone wants a tiebreaker. No one wants to just leave things up to, oh, hey, yeah, he's 1-1 and he's 1-1 because then they never know who's truly better. We obviously all know Kamara is better by what we saw from that fight. He just got caught. But there's always that doubt that's in people's minds. So I don't think that he will schedule anyone else to fight him. I think he schedules that part 3 first, which I think is the best thing to do. But don't be surprised if Dana tries to sneak some people in there just for money because they're like, oh, Leon Edwards, they want to pass the belt around to different people.
Okay. So what's Usman going to do? Is he not going to fight till he gets his rematch, or how do you see?
If I'm Usman and I go to Dana, I was supposed to win that fight. Yeah, that didn't win the fight, but I was supposed to win that fight. I've ran this division twice. I don't have anything else to prove against the rest of these fighters in this division. I beat all these other fighters in the division. There's no need for me. The only person I can think of that he would put him against in that division would be Khamzat Chimaev. That's the only person he hasn't fought that he needs to prove himself against. So I could see Dana working some money line here, putting Khamzat versus Kamara. So that way Leon Edwards has some time to hang on to the belt and relax and chill and just get to hold his belt for a little bit for an interim belt. And then after that interim fight, the winner of that will go against Leon Edwards, most likely. I know Kamara doesn't probably want to agree to that because he definitely deserves his rematch, but it's most likely what Dana would do.
Okay. All right. Chuck, since you brought up Dana White, I do want to bring up some comments that he made these past couple of weeks of him not budging, obviously saying he's not paying more to the fighters, things of that nature. How did you feel about those comments?
Okay, Dana. So who was it that just recently left? Not Rob Font. I can't think of his name right now. Um, there was a fighter recently for the UFC who the UFC definitely should have brought back, but he left to go elsewhere because he wanted to make more money. Plus, he gets a broadcasting gig still at ESPN. So it was the dumbest thing that he could have said. I think Dana just he's not in a good position right now with these fighters. I know if I'm a fighter and I'm hearing all this stuff, yes, I understand this is my way of making a living. This is my way of making ends meet, and this is a way of providing for my family. But if I'm a top dog and I'm making good money and I'm already a little bit established, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to fight for you. People will pay more in other promotions to have me come fight there and not deal with as much stuff as I have to deal with from you. So he's gonna start losing more fighters here and there. He's gonna gain more fighters here and there, though. He has a lot of different things, like with the Contender Series, the Ultimate Fighter. The thing about the UFC is it's way more publicized than any of the other leagues. But if you look at the PFL, if you look at bare knuckle boxing, if you look at all these other different ones, like Bellator, they're starting to get more global recognition and they're starting to get ESPN time and all these different other things. So you're going to see people moving towards those promotions more because it's like, well, shoot, I'm getting just as much TV time as I am with the UFC, plus I'm getting better benefits and pay.
So his exact quote was, and this is how it came pay issues with UFC. He's like, boxing is absolutely just was absolutely destroyed because of money and all the things that go on. It's never going to happen while I'm here. Believe me, these guys get paid what they're supposed to get paid. They eat what they kill. They get a percentage of the pay-per-view buys, and the money is spread out amongst all the fighters. Those are his exact comments. He says UFC pays around 20% of its revenue. And then obviously this is what started with the Jake Paul calling out Dana saying he doesn't pay his fighters, and Jake Paul saying UFC like pays their athletes the least amongst major sports, which I don't know if that's true, but that's what Paul was saying.
I don't think it's the truest because I think there's probably some other promotions that are probably a little way shittier than this. But it's not as good as boxing. It's not as good as Bellator. It's not as good as professional fighting leagues. There you gotta look at those places. Like Kayla Harrison, she would be a dog in the UFC. She would be a beast, and she would be fighting people like Amanda Nunes and stuff like that. And she'd compete, but Dana doesn't want to offer her good money. That's something she stated plenty of times before. I don't want to go to the UFC because I'm not going to get paid. You have people who can definitely make a name because what you want to look for is something. Women fighters are hard to come by. So getting a lot more of those women in there and stuff like that and promoting that would be huge for Dana. But he's missing out on a market there just because he doesn't want to pay his fighters. There's a lot of other fighters from different countries and different regions that understand I can make more money in the Bellator. There's better fighters in other promotions that are staying in other promotions because they know the UFC won't pay them that much. So he's missing out on talent just because he doesn't want to pay his fighters. So that stubbornness can also be their biggest weakness in a business like this. That's how you lose your business. That's how you end up losing people who want to have interest in it. Because other people might see these other fighters in other promotions doing better, and they might draw more interest. And eventually they're taking your numbers, they're taking your fans, they're taking your customers. And what do you do after that?
Sure, sure. Real quick, Chuck, just want to highlight 279 because that's going to be the next pay-per-view, September 10th. I'm in Las Vegas. And it's headlined by, speaking of someone, people leaving, by probably Nate Diaz's last match in the UFC, right?
Yes, sir.
So we're just going to start there because it's going to be the main event. What do you see in this match?
What I see in this match is Nate Diaz on the tail end of his career, not wanting to deal with Dana's bullshit anymore. He is a fighter who speaks out publicly more than most, more than any other fighter probably right now in the moment. He hates Dana. He hates his whole system. He's just tired of dealing with the BS with Dana. He's tired of dealing with the pay. He's tired of dealing with all the drama. He wants to get his last fight and get out of his contract and ride off into the sunset, smoking a fat doobie, chilling with his brother. Khamzat is a heavily, heavily favorite. The odds aren't out for this yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if I see he's listed as a minus 700 favorite. I would not be surprised. It will be a heavily sloped favorite. He's going on Twitter talking about he's going to kill Nate Diaz. He's going to bury this man. He's going to end his career literally, like, just like all these different things. And we'll see. That's all I'll say. Nate Diaz is a tough son of a bitch, and he ain't going out without a fight. You see what happened with the Leon Edwards fight in that last round. The guy who's starting to catch him a little bit. And Nate Diaz is a 5-round fighter. He's not a 3-round fighter. He gets better with each round. The more CTE he takes, the better he gets for some reason. And I see him coming out here and shocking the world. That's what I love about Nate Diaz. Everyone counted him out against Conor. Nate Diaz is one of the other fighters who got me into UFC. I was skinny at the time. I was very small. And Nate Diaz was a very skinny fighter, and he showed his ground game, his wrestling, his jiu-jitsu, and things like that, which were really, really well and crafted. And that's like, man, there's someone out there that's skinny who can do this stuff. You don't have to be buff to be a good fighter. You know, so I really, really hope Nate shocks the world. I would hate to see Nate lose in any type of fashion. This is just biased on my end with my prediction, but I see Nate Diaz shocking the world and ending his career on a win. So I hope and I pray Nate Diaz gets this done. As much as I like Khamzat.
Fair enough, fair enough. Other probably, and then you go down to Tony Ferguson's on this card as well. How do you see his fight going?
Tony Ferguson coming off of a loss where he got knocked out and put on his ass for the first time in his career. Yes, Tony Ferguson's been hurt in fights. Yes, Tony Ferguson's been stumbled in fights, but we've never seen Tony Ferguson get knocked out in the fashion that he did and get put on the floor. He got dropped by a kick straight up the middle. That's the first time he's been knocked out. So now he has a chin. Well, he already had a chin before, but he has a chin that's experienced being knocked out. He's going against Li Jingliang, who's on the rise right now in that welterweight division. That's a heavily, heavily sought out division right now. Because the main event, we're talking about Khamzat. That's a number 3 ranked fighter in that division. That fighter is that division is heavily, 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 heavily loaded right now with a bunch of good fighters. Kamaru Usman, Leon Edwards, Kobe Covington, Jorge Masvidal. There's so many fighters in that division. So we'll see what Li Jingliang has. See if he can move up and go above Michael Chiesa, Vicente Luque, Sean Brady, any of those fighters in that division. See if he has something he can prove against the 11th ranked Tony Ferguson, who used to be super, super high up in that division.
And then just scrolling through too, you have a big women's bantamweight bout. You got the number 4 versus the number 10.
Yes, sir. You have Irene Aldana and Macy Chiasson.
Like that's the only thing ranked match that's going to be on this entire card. So obviously that has to have big like implications for future like contendership, wouldn't?
Yeah, you have Irene, who's been sitting at the top here for a pretty penny now. You have Macy, who's been on the rise lately. So Macy, I think she's coming off a pretty good win, like her last fight, and I think it's going to be a pretty good fight. Macy has a very, very strong stand up, and I think Irene has a pretty strong stand up as well. It's interesting to see these two fighters meet in a situation like this. So I'm excited for that fight. I think it's going to be a bunch of output and a bunch of talent that no one's seen before. It's women's bantamweight division, so we'll see who's striking comes out on top there. I think Irene, I want to say she has 7 wins like by knockout, so and then 3 wins by decision. So most of her fights have been by finish. So I say this will be another finish for her. I don't see Macy having what it takes to beat her. I think Macy's good, but I just don't think the hype is there yet because she's still pretty fresh in the division. I mean, she's only 9-2, 3 wins by knockout, 2 by submission, 2 first round finishes. So she has a little bit left still to prove. And I think Irene's kind of a little bit established and better season than her.
Chuck, if you had to pick one fight that we didn't talk about that could be a sleeper hit of the night, which would it be?
I took another look at this card, and like even on the undercard, we have some great fights. I have a few honestly that stick out to me. Norma Dumont and Danielle Wolf. Danielle Wolf will be making her UFC debut. Really, 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 really good fighter who I can't wait to look to see what she does. But Norma Dumont's coming off a loss, I think, her last fight. And so she has a lot to prove here, and she's number 15 ranked. So she wants to move up, and she wants to continue to move up and hold on to that ranking spot. Because if you lose to an unranked fighter, that's going to start pulling you down out of the rankings. Then you have heavyweight bout. Chris Barnett, I think this is his second fight, I believe, or his third, going against Jake Collier. Chris Barnett had a crazy knockout. I don't know if you've ever been able to see big boys kick before, but this big boy can kick. He can get his leg up there. If you haven't seen his first fight in the UFC, go to YouTube right now, type in Chris Barnett, Barnett, and just look at his knockout that he had. The man can kick. The man can get his leg up there. The dude has an incredible game for a heavyweight. And he's a shorter heavyweight too. So I think that'll be pretty exciting. You have Hakeem Dawodu versus Julian Arosa. That will be a very, very good fight. 2 very, very, very fast strikers. Hakeem out of Canada, I think, will pull off a win in that one. And then you have Johnny Walker versus Ion Cutelaba, sorry. Johnny Walker wants to hold on to his ranking. I think he's not going to hold on to his ranking too long, fighting against Ion Cutelaba. Have you ever seen that man fight? He's just vicious. He's a light heavyweight, so he's like 205. But when he gets in that cage, he's probably like 225, beefs up afterwards. The dude is a nut. He's an animal, and I think he will put Johnny Walker on his ass in the first round. And I can't wait to see that fight. That's going to be a good fight. Ion's trying to get that ranking next to his name and continue to rise in that light heavyweight division. And I look forward to seeing what happens in that
one. Okay. Chuck, man, anything else?
There's one more fight on that division, that card. I think it's like the third fight before the main event. Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. I'm ready to see Kevin Holland fight and bounce back after that last fight. I want Kevin Holland to get a rank into his name. I want Kevin Holland to get a title. I believe Kevin Holland will be a very, very, very good fighter. And I believe he is a good fighter, but I believe he can be an even better fighter. And I think his last fight, he didn't do the best that he could. And I'm ready for him to showcase some things here against Daniel Rodriguez and move up in that division.
Okay. Anything else, Chuck?
Nothing on that card. Look out for the UFC Fight Night Gain versus Tui Vasa on September 3rd, this Saturday. It's going to be a very, very, very good fight. Number 1, Cyril Gain versus number 3, Tai Tuivasa. So these fights here have heavily implications on title shots that happen next. You have in the middleweight, you have Robert Whittaker versus Marvin Vettori. That's number 1 versus number 2 for the middleweight division. So you see who ends up fighting the winner of Israel Adesanya and Alex Perez. I can't say his name correct right now. But so look forward to that and see who will end up being in the middleweight shot again if Robert Whittaker can get back up there. So that's a card to watch out for. Those have 2 title fight implications right there.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I got. Look out for John Jones, as always.
Look out for John Jones, as always.
One other thing that's going on in the UFC right now, I don't know. Conor McGregor, get some help. Just get some help. If you haven't seen what happened with that, I will let you go to Twitter and look up and what happened with that. Posted a very interesting video of him and his wife on his yacht.
Yeah, go to Twitter and that. With that being said, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. Thank you, Chuck, for breaking down all of the fights from 278 and previewing the top fights for 279. Make sure you check out Chuck on social medias, on Twitter. Check the YouTube out. Check Twitch out. Chuck has been on his streaming game and has been streaming Madden 23 consistently in his season, which has been very entertaining. So definitely check that out. Follow him on Twitch. Follow him on YouTube. And hell, follow the L7C on Twitch and YouTube as well. Everyone's doing their thing. And we appreciate all the support. With that being said, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. Signing out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.